Hallo Leute, willkommen zurück zu meinem channel, and thank you guys for watching this video or clicking on it. I thought I would do a little bit of a more serious video because I feel like I've been wanting to tell people about this for quite some time, and I thought, why not talk about it now? And since things are going on at the moment, I kind of wanted to, this is a little bit of a negative topic considering it's about eating disorders and about my eating disorders, but I figured it could help those of you out who are struggling with it or who have had eating disorders like myself. And I thought I would talk about them for you guys because it is a hard topic to talk about. Just a couple of disclaimers. One, I don't want your sympathy in the comment section down below. And if you give me the sympathy, I will probably delete your comment. I don't need sympathy from anybody. I need empathy. That's all I ask. That's all I want. Two, if you are bothered by eating disorders being talked about, if you are triggered by anything that I'm about to mention, such as eating disorders, mental disorders, abusive people, things like that, if you're triggered by that stuff, please click off this video now. You have been warned if you continue to proceed. So I thought I would kind of start this off a little bit with a little bit of a background on myself before I went onto my notes and onto what it was like having an eating disorder, I guess, and opening up more about it. Because I'm not the only one going through eating disorders. I am not the only woman or man that's been through them. I know people who've had them and years later have told me that, yeah, that was an eating disorder. I wasn't just naturally skinny. And I thought I would kind of shed some more light on it. But a little bit of a background about myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Effie, and I make videos here on YouTube. So a little bit more about myself is that I grew up in an abusive environment. My abuser was my father. And I don't like talking much about my biological father. I usually talk about my non-biological father because he was basically my father. And my father was never around. My biological father was never around. But anytime that I mention my abuser or like my dad, just know those are two different people. My abuser was my abusive alcoholic father, and he was very abusive toward me. He would physically hit me, do a lot of other things. I don't really like talking much about it because there's a lot of other things that he did to me, verbally abuse, every sense of the word abuse he did. And so that kind of was horrible for me because my parents were married for a bit. I'm actually a child of divorce and have been for basically my whole life. My dad was never really around, and when he was abusive. And he was horrified of eating in front of him because every time he would criticize me or say that I'm fat or whatever, or just say really mean things about it. And it used to terrify me because I feel like every time I would eat in front of him, I felt like I was gonna get smacked, because for some reason I would get smacked sometimes when I was eating. And that's what caused my first eating disorder. I was probably around 6-ish years old when this happened. So this was a very long time ago, but I remember it very well. And my father my parents were together for quite some time. Of course, my parents separated when I was about 7 and divorced when I was about 9. So a little bit of a long process, but my dad didn't live with us for the majority of that time. And so I, of course, developed a little bit of an eating disorder. It's not that we didn't have food in the house, we did. I grew up very poor though. I was on welfare for all of my life pretty much. But I just didn't want to eat in front of anybody, like not even at school. Like people would be concerned that, oh, Effie's not eating, like what's going on? Like, is she eating at home? And I would eat, but not if my father was around, or not if, like, I always felt so ridiculed even at school because I was severely bullied my whole life. And I didn't like eating in front of people. And that is considered an eating disorder to me, at least, because nobody ever diagnosed me as anorexic or anything like that. Yes, I did have a fast metabolism, and yes, I looked kind of sick, and that's because I was. And I didn't like eating in front of people. Do I still get anxiety eating around people sometimes? Sometimes I do. But but I usually don't get it that much anymore. It's usually if I'm around family members who I think are going to criticize me. It's usually just around like my extended family that I feel this way. And that's still something I'm tackling now. And I had this eating disorder when I was pretty young, but I got through it. And I didn't think I ever would. I always thought I was going to be that one kid that looked sick and was sick. But I got through this, and I managed to get through it because my parents divorced. If they would have never divorced, I probably would still have it to this day. But for those who understand it, I guess will know. And I felt so horrible about it because I felt like I was definitely not eating enough. Like, I literally would sometimes pack my own lunch to school because, and like, it would never contain much. It would usually be like crackers. But anyway, I didn't really like eating in front of people for the longest time. I obviously still have that fear now. Now I'm a vegetarian, I feel like I don't really care anymore what people think at all, and I really don't care what people think anymore. But the fact that I'm a vegetarian and people criticize me for being a vegetarian, and I have been for 2 years now, that kind of sets in a little bit more, considering I eat very healthy. But at the time, I hated eating in front of people. I was never diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, but I definitely had it, and I rarely ever ate in front of people. I would eat around my mother, because that was the only one that, and I figured out, genetically speaking, that my mother had the same thing when she was younger, because she never wanted to eat in front of people, but it wasn't to the extreme that mine was, but she had a fear of eating in front of people. I've known people that have been that way too, and that they don't like eating in front of people, but they do eat. And I was always told, do you eat? Are you eating enough? Like, I for some reason, ever since both of my disorders have been diminished and gone, I've kind of traced back to what I would do before. Like, if I'm stressed out now, I don't stress eat anymore. And that kind of brings me to my other eating disorder that I had, which was binge eating disorder. For those of you who've been around since 2017 or 2016, you'll know that I was pretty fat back then. I was about a size 18 in women's sizes. I was borderline 18. I was big, and granted, I'm a tall person. I am 5'9", but I had an eating disorder then too. I was constantly eating. I was eating all the time. So two opposites were in this. But I was eating all the time. I was eating about every 10 minutes, and I worked in a call center at the time, and that was also a very stressful job, which caused me to stress eat. And when I stress ate, I didn't care what I ate. I literally didn't eat very healthy. I was still not even a vegetarian at the time. It was 2017 when this happened. And around 2017, I started to realize that, okay, I'm 205 pounds. I need to lose weight, and I'm binge eating. And yes, overeating does count as an eating disorder. So if you eat way too much, you are technically an overeater, and that is an eating disorder. But what caused this disorder was a little bit different. I was on Abilify for about 3 years, and until I was actually about 3 years, because I was diagnosed because I was on Abilify, and that was known to cause weight gain. And they said, oh, you'll only gain about 6 pounds on Abilify. But that was tested because when I started, I think I was around 150 pounds. It's considered average weight for my height. And I was bigger than that. I was about 200 and a little bit over even. Like, at my heaviest, I was 205 at least. And I hated looking at the scale. I didn't want to look at it because every 2 months I would go in for a checkup to check on my mental health and everything else. But they kept upping my dosage, and they would never listen to me and tell me, oh, this is all in your head, Effie, you're not gaining that much weight. But I was. And I was overeating. Like, I was borderline obese. And obesity would be more like a 30% mass, like a BMI. So I was weighing at 205, and my BMI was higher than that. And of course, a lot of people are like, oh, Effie, you needed to gain weight. You were sicker. You needed to gain all this weight. But I didn't want to gain all this weight. I was never the fat kid in school. Until I was a senior in high school when I was in 2015. But I was never the fat kid. I was never the kid that was fat. I was always a really skinny girl that had big boobs and was very tall and looked kind of like a model. And so I didn't know why I was so overweight. And of course, people don't usually believe me now because I've got pictures, obviously the picture of Aaron Carter, me and Aaron Carter. That's probably what my fattest looked like. That actually was what my fattest looked like, but I was over 200 pounds. And people, and my doctors dismissed it and were like, Effie, you're fine. Like, you are 205 pounds, you're fine. But that was not fine for me. I have never been overweight in my life until a few years ago. And I just started losing weight a few years ago. But it really caught up to me to where I'm down to a good weight now. Because for a while there, I was actually probably more like 2 years ago. But ever since I became vegetarian, I feel like it's definitely changed me quite a bit. But the disorders lasted for quite some time. My first eating disorder lasted a few years, and I felt like just when I was getting over that fear of eating and a little bit, but as soon as I felt like I was good with that disorder and that I was clear enough, I got another disorder. And since then, I haven't really had much for eating disorders. I have finally intermittently fasted, and that seems to help me a lot better. I should make an entire video on that. But what I did to get through both of them, I feel like with the first one, I just kind of grew into it, where I was just eating more around people, and I took a lot of advanced culinary classes to kind of help with that when I was younger. And I took a lot of very advanced chef level classes when I was in school because my school offered it, so I had the option to do so. And that's what kind of helped me. But then obviously I would eat when I had the disorder, because I was still in high school when I had it towards the end of graduation. And I still had the disorder when I had my binge eating disorder when I was in school. And I would obviously eat before class because I had lunch before my culinary class. And then during, because we could always eat in class, because that's what I liked about, I'm still a foodie to this day, but of course I don't eat meat. But I'm still kind of a foodie, and that kind of carried on, but I don't eat nearly as much as I used to, and I'm considered an athlete now because I'm a dancer, and I definitely just felt like I literally did not want to keep eating and eating and eating. My mom was concerned for me, my coworkers were concerned for me, everybody was concerned for me. Some people were like, oh, you're fine. I ended up losing a friend with my binge eating disorder because she thought that it was bad that I was losing weight. She was body shaming me because that's just her thing, her business. But she was body shaming me, and a lot of people were body shaming me and saying, you look fine, Effie, you look fine. But I didn't feel fine. That's the thing with these eating disorders, is that you don't feel yourself. You feel fat. You feel way too fat. You may feel too skinny. You may feel all these different kinds of emotions. And I figured out throughout my journey of being out of eating disorders for now what seems like just 2 years, but still, like, it's been a massive difference between then and now. And I'm in so much better shape now. I'm in actually probably the best shape of my life. Even when I was a basketball player, volleyball player, track, anything, I'm definitely in the best shape of my life at the moment. But of course, there's always downfalls, of course, when I don't exercise, and when I have a tendency to excessively exercise now, which is not good either. And I've been trying to help with that, to kind of like narrow it down and not do 3 hours of exercise every day like I was doing, because I'm still self-conscious of areas of my body. But people did know about both of these disorders, and I got through it. And I felt like people were supporting me a bit more with my weight loss. And as you guys can see, I mean, the videos I had with my blue hair, that was probably that was at my fattest. But right now, if I were to stand up, of course, I'm wearing very interesting clothing. Usually don't show my full frame here, but as you guys can see, I'm actually like not too bad in terms of weight. Granted, this is not the most flattering thing to wear, but I look a lot better than I did. And my thighs have definitely gone down a little bit, but I've got naturally big thighs, and part of my body type, I'm a triangle body type, kind of similar to an hourglass, but without the shoulders, or pear. But I mean, I've worked out a lot more. I've actually was an athlete for the majority of my life until after freshman year of high school. Like sophomore year of high school, I wasn't an athlete. Up until senior year, like, I was not an athlete those years. And then after that, I was an athlete the majority of my school career. And that was kind of weird, but now I'm back on to being an athlete. And that's what's really changed me. I mean, my legs are a lot stronger now. I'm still working on my thighs because my thighs are the area that I gain the weight the most. And I kind of wanted to do a video on body types, I guess. But that's this video for you guys. And I thought I would post this video, and I hope it's helpful to those of you who are going through this, or who need help, or who want to know more about me. But that's it. That's it for this video, you guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. And be sure to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you don't like it. So that's it. Bye, guys.